Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Health Literacy Out Loud. I just want to tell you I'm so excited to be here in Mumbai, India at the Health Library. Please introduce yourself.
Sure, Ellen. I'm Dr. Anirudh Malpani. I'm the founder and the medical director of the Health Education Library for People.
And that's called HELP, H-E-L-P. That's pretty clever. Okay. So you're a physician and you founded this library. I want to hear, and you care a lot about health literacy. That I know. That's why we're meeting. You asked me to come to India to do some work with you and speak at a conference about health literacy. I have a few questions for you. I guess let's take it from the top. Why does health literacy matter so much to you?
I think it matters to every physician because what we do day in and day out is talk to patients, help them get better, operate on them. And health literacy is such an integral part of your DNA, but it's a term which is unfamiliar to us because we don't realize the importance. Part of the problem is most of us as doctors think our bedside manners are great. We explain everything, patients understand everything instantly. And we actually don't realize what a bad job we do until we read books on health literacy written by people like Helen. Say, ooh, am I really making all these mistakes? How can I go back and fix this and do a better job?
So your interest in this was really just trying to be better at being a doctor. And then it was like, maybe I'm not doing as good a job as I could be doing at it. Now, I've talked to a lot of doctors, and I've gotten to know you a little bit, and you really are special. I applaud you for that because you take these messages to heart and you really want to change in that. What have you learned along the way about communicating more clearly now that you do know about health literacy?
So I think I'm happy to use any tool which is available, which helps me become a better doctor. And you can't be a better doctor until your patient trusts you. How do you inculcate that trust? How do you make sure that the patient knows that what you're saying is reliable? You need to earn that trust. The patient's not going to give it away. And health literacy actually provides you basic rules which doctors can follow in order to make sure that the message which they want to get across is coming across.
Tell me more. I want a real example here.
So, even for example, a lot of the way you write stuff or the way you talk. I'll give you an example. One of the books we wrote first, because I'm an IVF specialist, was
IVF is?
In vitro fertilization or test tube babies. See, I'm making the same mistakes.
You are, and I'm catching you at it.
This is the problem with being a doctor. You have all these ingrained bad habits and you need to unlearn some of that. And again, when you remember health literacy, it helps you remember, maybe I'm not doing such a good job.
Okay.
But the first book we wrote, because we wanted to educate our patients, was called How to Have a Baby. And I was proud of the book. We explained everything, the emotional impact, the physical problems, how we fix them. And we found that even though I thought I'd written the book well, patients weren't reading it. So, back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
And then we converted the book to a comic book because a lot of your messages use images.
So you had this book, and it wasn't just how to have a baby, but how to have a baby with IVF. And so you did the usual kind of a patient handout like people did, but had a lot of pages to it. How did you come up with the idea for a comic book?
So I said, what would I like to read? Or what would make my patients read it?
Yeah.
And, like you said, images are so much more interesting.
Yeah.
So is it possible for us to actually convert the textbook into a comic book? Part of the problem, of course, as a doctor is you're all left-brain thinking, you're logical, analytic, and that's why you become perhaps a doctor. And those are the skills which you respect yourself for and which patients expect from you. I needed to partner with an artist who has much more of a right brain to convert that into a visual format. And then everyone reads the book because it's much easier, it's much quicker, it's much more interesting. I find it more interesting as well.
Are you finding that your patients know more after seeing the comic book? Like, can you do your own little testing in that way that they understand concepts a little bit more?
It makes my consultation so much easier.
Does it?
The whole comic book is online on our website. So the quality is...
Oh, what's your website?
It's www.drmalpani, that's drmalpani.com.
Okay, M-A-L-P-A-N-I.
Yes. So the great thing is that the quality of questions, you can make out how much a patient knows by how they're talking to you. The quality of questions is much better, the comprehension.
Really?
So we use talk back, so we tell patients, okay, fine, let me figure out exactly how much you've understood. And thanks to the fact that they've read the book, I actually need to spend less time explaining stuff because I can always tell them, the comic book's there. You can always read it after you finish the consultation, so they don't have to worry about, I need to understand everything in the 5 minutes I have with the doctor.
So it's faster and it works. Is that anything special about India? I come from the U.S. I mean, I don't know. I see people of all varieties here. Is there anything special about meeting the needs of people in India that the comic book helps, or do you think that this would help worldwide?
I think patients are patients and doctors are doctors.
Okay.
We all have the same needs, requirements. We all starve for time. Patients want to know more.
Okay.
And I think the great thing about the comic book is because it's a visual format, it cuts across all borders.
Oh, because in India, as I've been learning, you have so many languages, so many dialects. So a lot of people just don't speak English or Hindi. They speak many, many languages. Is anybody ever offended? Like, Doc, I came to see you. Why are you giving me a comic book?
No one's ever complained. They're actually quite appreciative. Often what will happen is patients will doctor shop. And that's perfectly okay. They need to find out whom they can trust. And because you're the only doctor who's actually given them something tangible, which they can go back and refer to, and help them to understand their problem and make better sense of it, they're actually grateful that you've taken that additional time and the trouble.
It's a wonderful story about really going from I think I could do a better job to really doing a better job. Can you put this in a bigger context for us too? Because you really are quite a health literacy champion. You're running conferences on health literacy, and you have this health library here. Talk about your journey in both of those, please.
I think one of the reasons you become a doctor is you want to help other people. And then sometimes you realize that what you're doing may not be helpful because patients don't get the message. And some of the skill sets which medical school leaves you with may not necessarily equip you with some of this stuff because not all doctors are necessarily good communicators. You may not have very good role models. And therefore, you need to acquire some of these skills. And I think the great thing is that thanks to doing some of this stuff, I honestly think it's helped me to become a better doctor. So I'm very, very grateful. I think if you need to learn, if you need to remain young, you need to be curious.
Is that why you have the conferences? Because
for selfish reasons, because that way I can learn a lot from people like you, Helen. But honestly, there's so many people doing so many clever things and they inspire you and say, if that doctor can make a video, why can't I? Maybe I can't make it, but can I use his skills to do something similar? There's so many people doing so many clever things. So I think it inspires you. It helps you realize you're not a crackpot, that there are other people who are doing equally clever stuff. So there's actually a community. But the most important thing is, I think it helps you respect your patients. And I think that's the biggest advantage.
And I was honored to be keynoting your conference, and I saw there were many professionals. There were doctors, there were patient advocates, there were patients, the whole range there. I was so impressed by all the different ways people are communicating. And I can hear your enthusiasm for it because your conference was the third one, right? You just bring a variety of different people together. So you do the conferences, you do it in your own clinical practice. Tell us a little bit more about the Help Library, please.
So the Help Library has evolved. We didn't just want to spout theory. We wanted to tell people that it can actually be done in real life. Whenever you say something, people will have 100 objections. I'm too busy, I don't have the time, who's going to do this, who's going to explain, I don't know how to do this. So therefore we said, let's set up a physical facility which can actually be proof of concept. It's now grown to be the world's largest patient education library.
Whoa!
And what we really like is then for hospital CEOs to say, this is great for my patients and the relatives who come. So why don't I set up a mini consumer health library within my hospital? So that's a big dream. Equally importantly, one of the things which has happened over the last 10 years is we've realized that as important as a physical library is digital online information because that's where the patients are.
Yeah.
So the library has evolved also. It's no longer just a collection of books within four walls.
When you say it's the world's largest patient education library, it's not that big a physical space here. You mean the digital capacity for it?
And, what's happened is patients don't forget about patients, even doctors and hospitals don't realize what a wealth of patient educational material there is. So most libraries would be medical libraries which are designed for doctors or for medical professionals. There are actually very few patient education or consumer health libraries.
Worldwide.
very few.
I know of some. I visited a few. I always wanted to have one myself when I worked at a hospital, and it was just too many hurdles to figure out how to do that. So
It's actually a lost opportunity. You have a captive patient population. You have patients who have relatives who have questions. And this is such a cheap, inexpensive way of answering those questions and improving patient satisfaction scores without eating into your doctor's time.
So we have this physical place here. You have a group of librarians too. So you have books, you have models, you have audios. I know you were telling me you have lectures, you do videos, you have all of this. What else? So how do people know about the Health Library?
So some of it is word of mouth, some of it is our location. We often will have people who are happy with our services who will then tell their friends about it. So I think hopefully at some point we'll reach a tipping point. What's our major focus is that the problem with the healthcare system today is it's too doctor-centric. It's all about the doctor. You know, hospitals are created around doctors. It's doctor's brand name. You have long waiting lines. I don't think that's a sign of a good system. And we need to put patients first. And the only way we can make sure patients are first if the information asymmetry goes away. And part of that has to do with doctors educating patients. But part of that also has to do with patients taking responsibility for educating themselves. I think for us, that's our biggest challenge in India because we still use a very paternalistic system. It's like, you know, the doctor knows best. I went to my doctor told me what to do and I'm doing it, so that's fine. The trouble is that if things go well, your doctor is God. If things don't go well, you call your doctor a butcher. It doesn't help anyone.
So you're really changing the mindset of patients and families and caregivers for that. How do people, is your library just accessible to people in Mumbai or India, or can all our great podcast listeners take a look?
Excellent question. So the physical library, of course, is only in Mumbai, but thanks to our website, which is healthlibrary.com.
Okay.
And I'll spell it out. It's www.healthlibrary.com.
Okay.
We have a digital knowledge base. We have an Ask a Librarian. So we're happy to use the digital platform to be able to reach out to everyone in this country and everyone in the world for that matter.
So you have done so much. I don't know what the time frame is from your first realization to all you've accomplished. How many years was that?
It's been a long time. I no longer count because then people will
Like
know how old I am.
5 years? Oh, I'm older than you. 10 years maybe?
Yeah, it's been longer than that. It's been about 12 years.
So
when we first started, it was basically, we need to do this for the sake of our own patients. And then it's gradually just taken off a life of its own and it's kept on growing. And we think some things are going to change now within the healthcare system because the way healthcare system in the world go, it's no longer sustainable. You know, creating more doctors and creating more hospitals doesn't solve the problem because the more the doctors you have, the greater the demand they create for their services. We need to look for alternatives. And we think the alternative is making sure patients have the right information so they can make sense of the advice which the doctor gives. I can only see benefits and I can see no downsides. So you know what, Helen?
What?
What amazes me is why every doctor doesn't do it.
Well, I was just going to ask you that. What would, we've got people listening to this, watching this. What one message do you want them to take away from this? I mean, you're an inspiration because I'm getting to know you and seeing all you've accomplished in just 10 or 15 years. What would you like to tell your colleagues and peers and everybody who cares about health literacy?
I'd say do it for selfish reasons. Do it if you want to improve the quality of your life, if you want to improve the quality of time you spend with your patients, if you want your patients to respect you, if you want to become a busier physician, you want to become a richer physician, everything else, do it for selfish reasons because not only will you have much more happiness and satisfaction because that's what you became a doctor for in the first place, because the only way to have happy doctors is to have happy patients.
Oh, I love the way that you switch that. You are indeed an inspiration. Thank you so much for all that you are offering to all of us, to me, to being part of this, and to everybody worldwide about your passion about patient education. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Helen. Thanks.